Hey everybody, welcome back to Stadia Cast, your source for all of the Stadia news that's out there. I'm Bill, that's Lloyd, and we're going to talk about Stadia. How you doing, Lloyd?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Getting excited. We got some news to talk about. Not real news, but we got news of news. So that's where we're at right now. We're excited for news of news.
The announcement of the I feel like it's a Star Wars announcement of a trailer. So like they announce
Yeah,
when the trailer's going to be on the Super
yeah.
Bowl, and everybody's like, "Yeah!"
And then
Go ahead.
it turns into a 5-second teaser though. That's
Right.
what you're excited for, and it's just like, oh, I was excited for this.
just
No.
just a lightsaber lighting up or something. You're like, oh, but then nothing.
Exactly.
So before we get started, we record this show live Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern over at youtube.com/StadiaCast. I want to take a second to thank the people who come here for the live show. You guys are awesome. We've currently got a bunch of people in, and people are already hitting the like button and hanging out and chatting with us, and it's always awesome to we recorded a really weird time Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. and for people to still show up is just fantastic. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure Lloyd does too.
I definitely do.
Yeah, if you want to leave a voicemail for Stadia Cast, you can do so by heading on over to runjumpstomp.com/voicemail from any device, and we may even play it on the show. And if you want to directly support Stadia Cast, there's actually a couple ways to do it. The first way that is just for this show is anchor.fm/StadiaCast. And then you can click the support this podcast link. And for as little as $1, you can help us create future episodes of Stadia Cast. But if you really, really like Lloyd's stuff, you can support him over on Patreon. Lloyd, what's your Patreon?
Patreon.com/ResTV.
And if you are a big fan of my other stuff, you can check me out over at patreon.com/RunJumpStomp. Are you ready to talk about Stadia?
I am so ready.
All right, why don't you tell us about this this tweet?
All right. So earlier this week, we saw some activity on the @Google Stadia account on Twitter, which is always a good thing to see. Usually, it's our joysticks are ready and other kind of almost lame marketing tweets
Oh my
that they do.
God. Can I interrupt for a second?
Please.
You are so right. The stuff that they post is so doofy. You know what I think that they need to do? They need to go find whatever advertising agency is in charge of like Arby's, and they need to get
Right.
them to do their tweeting for them, because a lot of this stuff is just really stupid. But go ahead.
So this one wasn't that, which is really good. We talked last week about Gamescom coming up and how excited we are because we're most likely going to get something from Google Stadia. They have a booth there and all that stuff. And their tweet says, let's do it again on 8/19. Stadia Connect is back and bigger than ever. Tune in at 10 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central Eastern. That's a weird date thing. That I guess that's the UK one.
Yeah, that's the
For all
UK.
the details.
Or not
Come
UK, that's like Central European Standard Time. So I don't think that's
Right.
UK, because
No.
UK would be 1500. Oh, no, hold on. I'm trying to do the math here. So 10 a.m. Pacific is 10, 11, 12, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then if you're in England, then that would be 6 p.m.
Right.
So you know what? It's 10 a.m. Pacific. You guys can go to time zone calculator and figure out what time it is for you anyway. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Time travel's hard, Bill. We need to get this time travel stuff down a little bit.
88 miles per hour. Go
There
ahead.
you go. So it looks like at 10 a.m. they're going to be having at least a Connect that's going to be looking at games. Their big video thing, which I just hit play on, which I shouldn't have because it's going to have audio. It just was flipping a bunch of emoji, but a lot of them were video game emojis. So I'm excited for this. We're actually getting some news, and it is coming very, very soon.
It is, and I don't know if you noticed or not, but in that little emoji train, so if I pause this and I try and fast forward through it, oh, come on. Why won't it let me fast forward through it? I'm trying to fast forward through it. I noticed that they had some certain flags on there.
Mhm.
Oh, because of Gamescom. Okay, because Gamescom is coming So they got like a little alien, an explosion, a fist. So for fighting games, a chain. What do you think the chain means?
I don't know. I was looking at that. I'm like, hey, we're getting God of War. Oh, wait, no, that's a Sony exclusive. So no, that's not going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe like they wouldn't be talking about like their tool chain for developers or anything because this is a consumer focused one. So there must be some reference there that we'll get after the event.
Right, and then there was the German flag, I think, in there someplace, or maybe it was another one. It was going so fast, it's hard for me to see, but they showed off some flag in there, and I assume that it's got to be German because that's where Gamescom is, right? Or am I wrong
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. I believe that's where it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, listen, guys, it's going to be on August 19th. Now, if you are a calendar person, then you're looking at the calendar right now. What a nerd. But I'm looking at the calendar right now, and August 19th is on a Monday, and we record this show on a Sunday. So, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Lloyd and I to record an episode next Sunday. So, what we decided to do is that we are going to try and do a live show Monday night after the shenanigans have taken place. And so we will have all of that information available to you. We have not settled on a time yet because Lloyd and I have both been really busy with other stuff. So we have not settled on a time yet. So if you want to know exactly when this live show is going to be, head on over to Google, not Google, head on over to youtube.com, maybe someday. Head on over to youtube.com/StadiaCast, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button, and as soon as Lloyd and I figure out what time on Monday we're going to record, I will make a live stream and post it early, and it'll have like a countdown and everything. And then you guys can go there and hit like, of course, and make comments and be there for the live stream. Now, in addition to that, Lloyd is going to be trapped at work when this is actually happening. So that means that he's going to have his head buried in a keyboard and not able to actually see anything cool. So we're going to be able to find out everything before Lloyd does. How do you feel about that, Lloyd?
I'm very disappointed that is the case. Google, you didn't check with me as to when to hold this event, and I expect an apology, or formal written apology. Yeah, no, I'll be monitoring the socials, but yeah, I won't be able to do any fun stuff because I'll be at the work doing the work things.
I'll be doing the fun stuff though, because right here I will also be live streaming the Stadia Connect. So if you want to watch it without this bald weirdo yammering over stuff, then you can go to g.co/Stadia Connect. But if you want to watch it live with me and have a discussion with a bunch of people who also like this podcast, other awesome people, then join me at Stadia. Oh my God, at youtube.com/StadiaCast live at probably before 10 a.m. Pacific. I'll probably start early, and that way we can have some chatting ahead of time, and then we can chat through the whole thing. And then afterwards, we'll have a conversation, just me and the chat. And I'm sure that Lloyd, will you be in that chat when you're able to?
Yeah, provided nothing blows up at the office. There's no explosions and chains and other things happening. Oh wait, no, that's a Stadia tweet that they sent out. But provided there's nothing crazy going on, I'll at least be lurking over there and chatting with you fine folks.
He'll be able to type LOL and things like that real quick before his boss walks by, and he'll hit that Alt tab real fast so that nobody knows what's going on. But that's right. The plan for next Monday, and that's why there's no episode next Sunday. So hopefully everybody understands with that. I am very excited about this. Lloyd, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think that we're going to get any news about first-party titles?
Ooh, I would say you have to. This is happening in August. Stadia is coming out in November, so that's a couple months away. I would think that they would at least have to say something. Well, that's provided that any of their internal studios are even close to showing off a game. Like maybe their games are not even close to being ready. But if there is one ready and it's coming out for launch, this would be the place where they would unveil it, I would think.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You're in charge of Google.
Okay.
Okay. Would you let would you launch Stadia without having a first party exclusive?
Um, I would I wouldn't personally. I would bring back a bunch of the services that everybody else killed off first. That would be the first thing I would do. But then I would go back to Stadia and say, yeah, no, we're not launching without at least a couple first party exclusives to get people excited about buying this hardware right away.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I would say we will push this launch until 20 whatever in order to make sure that we've got first party exclusives. I think that first party exclusives are what make or break a console launch. And while there's a bunch of games on Stadia at launch, it's not going to be a huge amount, and you don't need a huge amount. You just need to have the right game. And that's I don't know if do we know if Baldur's Gate 3 is a launch game? I don't think it's a launch game, is it?
I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, they just said that it's coming to Stadia and it's coming to all the platforms. Not that it or did they say anything about consoles? I don't even think they said anything about consoles. They just said PC and Stadia so far. So we
Yeah.
don't even know if that's going to be a launch game. They got to have something at launch. Like I'm sure you guys know, Lloyd and I both do Nintendo podcasts. The Nintendo Switch would have been dead in the water if it didn't launch with Zelda. If it didn't launch with Breath of the Wild, that whole thing would have just been a paperweight that nobody would have. It would have died a horrible death like the Wii U. So
Yeah.
I feel like Stadia needs to come out punching with something really, really fantastic and something that shows off why Stadia is different than other platforms. And we've heard them talk about crowd play and all these other features a bunch, but we haven't really seen them show, hey, this is going to I mean, outside of that Tom Clancy game where you can see your the screens of your partners
Right.
in real time, which is cool, but I want to see things that make Stadia stand out from the everything else. What makes it different? And this is another chance for Stadia or Google to do this, and they need to do it now because right now, most of YouTube and most of the internet is really, really negative on Stadia. And I think that's because Stadia is really bad at understanding how to talk to their intended audience. Anyway, that's
Mm.
just how I feel about it.
Yep. No, I agree fully. Yeah. Your quote about or your comment about the Switch is perfect. Like the Switch would have definitely been dead in the water without that first party exclusive. So Google knows this, even though their messaging has been maybe a little lacking. They definitely they definitely know how to market this thing. And the big part of marketing game system is games, even though it's not a typical game system that you're going to put under your TV. So I do think Google knows that, and I think this will be the big coming out event to kind of talk about the first few months of what Google Stadia is going to be, because they really want to sell people on those founder packs.
Oh, without a doubt. By the way, are you buying an extra controller? Because somebody asked me that the other day. They were like, "Are you buying an extra controller for your founders pack?" And I said, "I don't think so, not yet."
No, I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm gonna be playing mostly. If I'm gonna be playing mostly in this room, I have USB ports and I can plug in any other controller or use a PlayStation or Xbox controller wirelessly. But if I find that I'm playing a lot on the TV, then and I want to play some multiplayer games, then I'll just pick one up down the road. I don't need one right away.
Yeah, I think pretty much same for me here. I'm not. I haven't made a decision 100% yet, but I think that I'll end up getting more down the line. Actually, what I'll probably do is if the founders pack is if Stadia takes off the way I think it will, then I'll end up buying another founders pack for my. Will I? I don't think. You know what? No, because I have a Chromecast Ultra upstairs, and then this will give me a second Chromecast Ultra, so I won't have any reason to get another founders pack. I don't know how. Okay, this is the thing, Google, and I know I've talked about this before. but you've got to separate this Founders Pack nonsense from the Chromecast, because I don't need another Chromecast. The first Founders Pack works wonderful for me, just
Hmm.
absolutely wonderful, because I need one more Chromecast. But I don't need. I like that's all my TVs. All my TVs are covered after that one. And if I want to buy my son a Founders Pack so that he can play Stadia games as well, then what the hell am I supposed to do? Buy this and then have a Chromecast just sitting there collecting dust because I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, put
If
it.
and I know somebody in chat will probably say, just send it to me, and I understand. That's a funny thing that I would say too, but I don't know. It's annoying that they haven't separated multiple tiers of the Founders Pack. Here's a Founders Pack for people who don't need a Chromecast. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it is interesting. It's probably part of it is they want to recoup as much money as possible from Stadia being in development for 5 years, 10 years, whatever they've been working on it for. So they want to get a big chunk of money from everybody that is playing it off first. But if you already own a Founders Pack, maybe you get a booster pack that just includes another controller and access to create another account right at launch. That would be the perfect solution for that.
let's before we move on to the other news stories, let's take a look at the live chat. I've got a message here from Maxime, says, "Don't forget that there can be second-party exclusives, and also a console launch is not the same as a streaming service launch, especially with two launches if you count Stadia Base." And you are absolutely correct about that. However, if they want a lot more people to buy in on the Stadia Founders Pack, I think that it would behoove them to make sure that there is an exclusive that says, "Look, people, this is a game that you can only." Okay, actually, let me start my argument over here. If you want people to try Stadia, you've got to give them a reason to. If the same games are launching on Stadia and on Steam, then I can just buy it on Steam. And yes, I know maybe somebody doesn't have the most powerful system, and then that's going to benefit them. I understand that. I'm talking about convincing people who are already hardcore gamers to try out this new streaming thing. That's a thing that Google is definitely having a trouble getting across.
Yeah.
I feel like Google has I feel like Stadia is poised to do really well in the casual market. The filthy casuals like me, who, okay, I call myself a filthy casual, but I'm a Twitch streamer and stuff like that. The people like me who don't have a lot of time, or people who don't have a lot of money, like friends of mine who don't have tons of money to invest in computer hardware, or they don't care enough about gaming to invest in computer hardware. I think Google is perfect for, like, Stadia is going to convince those people, no problem. They're going to be like, "Oh, cool, I can play on my Chromebook, score. Now I don't have to
Hmm.
buy a thing." The people that Google needs to convince that Stadia is going to be amazing are the people who already have a bunch of hardware and they already play video games all the time. And these are the ones who are looking down their nose at Stadia right now. And the only thing that's going to convince them that it's awesome is if they try it. And the only way you're going to get them to try it is to have an exclusive that they can't buy anywhere else. So that when they look and they say, "Okay, well, here's this thing, I can try it." They try it out and they're like, "Oh my God, this is really friggin' awesome. I'm convinced." And once they get convinced, then things will change for Stadia. But without that exclusive, I think that the people who are on YouTube constantly crapping on it, and the people on the internet who are always saying how awful Stadia is going to be, those people are just going to keep saying the same things because they need something to convince them. Google is stepping into this gaming market, but they haven't really done anything to speak to the hardcore audience that they are, I guess, kind of going after. Does that make sense, Lloyd?
It totally does. I was just chatting with some buddies of mine who are huge PC gamers, and they didn't even really know what Stadia was. They heard of it, didn't look into it anymore. So I kind of explained what it is, because one of them was talking about agonizing at the decision at which 2080 Ti to buy, because it's like, oh, it's $1,200 to $1,500 and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, why don't you wait and pick up Stadia for $150 and play every game at 4K 60 without having to buy a new video card that costs as much as a new PC. He's like, well, what's the Stadia thing? So I explained it to him. He's like, you know what? Maybe that's an option. Maybe I'll hold off on my video card for a bit and see if maybe streaming is going to work for some of these newest, latest, and greatest games that I want to play. But the hardcore gamers, a lot of them don't even know what Stadia is. So Google has a big road ahead of them to kind of get the word out, to explain what their service is, and then to also lock down this exclusive content to get people to move over that are know about it, but maybe say, well, I already have a PlayStation 4. I don't really need anything else. It's going to be an interesting battle for them to get the word out and get people signed on that aren't kind of like the early adopters like we are.
I totally agree. Soundwave in chat says, what makes Stadia different? This is kind of in response to me saying that Google has to convince everybody what makes Stadia different. Soundwave says, what makes Stadia different from all others is that every game on Stadia will be 4K, 60 frames per second. Even people with beast PCs can't, get every game to run 4K 60. And while that may be true, I think you're overestimating the number of people that really care about those numbers are an extremely small subset of the gaming community. I don't care about 4K 60. I care about 60, but don't care about 4K. Almost every screen in my house is a 1080p screen. Except, my Nintendo Switch plays 720p. And most of the time when I'm playing my games, I don't care what the resolution is, as long as the game looks decent and is fun to play. And that's where I think most people will land. So while you're right, Stadia will have a leg up as far as graphics go. The counter argument to that is, but there's going to be artifacting from the compression algorithms and blah, 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 blah. And I understand that too. But the thing that I have to say is that I don't care about the numbers. I want to know about the features that can only happen on a streaming platform. And Google has told us about some of these features, but I'll bet you that they're holding some stuff close to the chest.
Yep.
And we're going to see that hopefully next Monday. But we're going to see that. And then people are going to be like, oh, wow. I never thought about how whatever whiz bang thing that they show off, I never thought about how that would work. That is a game changer and really, really interesting. So do you care about numbers, Lloyd?
60 frames a second, I love, but if I'm playing a game and it's not 60, I don't go crazy about it. As I said, my main platform right now is the Switch, which oftentimes isn't 60 frames, and it's definitely never 4K. So that doesn't really bother me too much. But if I could get a stable frame rate, it doesn't matter if it's 30 or 60 or whatever. The stable frame rate is what's more important to me, because the pickups and drops of the frame rate is what always just kind of throws me off. So it looks like we won't have a problem with that with Stadia. It's going to be more than powerful enough to do a straight 60 or 30 frame rate. Lock it in. There you go. So I'm happy for that aspect of it anyway.
Thank you very much for that information. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at some arguments from the IEEE spectrum about how Google is what Google's doing to make sure that we have a lag-free, super good experience when we're playing Stadia. So stick around. We'll hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, more to come. Be right back. Have you played Atari today? All right, everybody, we are back. I got this tweet from IEEE Spectrum, and if you don't know IEEE, do you know what that stands for? I used to back when I did computer networking, but I don't anymore. It was a long time ago.
No, not off the top of my head.
So the IEEE, I think that they have something to do with oh shoot, my brain just stopped working. It has something to do with internet protocols and stuff like that. So this article that I found is very how do I want to say this? Very technical, and it explains what Google's doing and how Google's using YouTube, or used YouTube, to pave the way for bringing Stadia to us later on this year. And there's a couple of quotes that I pulled out of the article. And if you want to check out the full article, you can go to runjumpstomp.com. This is Stadia Cast episode 20, and you can check out the full article there. But one of the quotes here is from Majid Bakar, who is the VP of Engineering at Stadia. He says, "Our vision is to have Stadia available on all devices that stream YouTube, a truly platform agnostic service." And I love that idea. And the thing that jumps out at me. And do you have an Xbox, Lloyd?
Do you know? I don't have an Xbox One anymore. I might be picking up one soon because I have the Game Plus service or whatever, the Pro thing that I can play on PC and stuff like that. I might pick up a used one, but I don't have one currently.
So did you have one at some point, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
I bought one close to launch to play Halo, and then that was the only game I played on it. And then I said, this paperweight under my TV isn't doing any good there, so I traded it in and used that money to buy a second Switch for my kids.
Does the Xbox have YouTube?
I believe so. Yeah, I think the Xbox has YouTube and Twitch and all those services that you can watch right on the dashboard.
And the PlayStation has YouTube, doesn't it?
It does.
And the Switch even has YouTube. I know that because that's like the primary way that my son watches YouTube is on his Switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. Will this ever happen? That's a pretty big ask. But for him to say all devices that stream YouTube is their vision, do you think that there's a chance in hell of Stadia being playable on Nintendo Switch, on PlayStation, on Xbox ever?
I just can't see a future where the platform holders would allow them to do that. Even though it's a YouTube app, it still has to go through certification and things like that. So if they added Stadia to it, I could see Sony particularly because they're Sony, and Microsoft because they have a competing service, saying, "Yeah, no, you're not putting that on our system." Sorry.
Yeah, but at the same time, Microsoft. I mean, PlayStation. I totally agree. PlayStation hates anybody that's not PlayStation. But Microsoft, and yes, they have a competing service. But like Microsoft is the same publisher that just went to the developers of Cuphead and they said, "Hey, can you make a version of this for the Switch?" Because they can make money. Whenever Microsoft makes money anytime that Cuphead sells because they're the publisher. So they went and they said, why don't you make this on a competing platform so we can make more money? That's brilliant. Microsoft seems to be the one company out of all of them, and this is something that is very surprising to me about Microsoft, but they're the one company out of all of them that seems to understand that if it's possible to make money, then we should do it. And I think it would be unbelievable. I mean, this is very pie in the sky nonsense, but it would be ridiculous. But I could see Microsoft saying, you know what, this might actually help sell Xboxes. And then, maybe, I don't know. It's just a weird idea. The article also goes on to say this very interesting quote. It says, like YouTube, Stadia will also lean heavily on video codecs. This is in response to a lot of people worried about the bandwidth and the latency. So let me read this to you. Like YouTube, Stadia will also lean heavily on video codecs to compress what players see into chunks of data that are easier to deliver. One common video codec is called H.264, which has become compression standard for popular video streaming service, Blu-ray discs, and HD TV broadcasts since it debuted in 2003. A decade after H.264, Google also developed a competitor called VP9 that could deliver HD and 4K streaming on YouTube using half the bandwidth of other codecs. So we already know that this is working on YouTube. This is what YouTube is using currently, is VP9. Although I don't think that the VP9 doesn't work on iOS devices, does it?
It does not, no. There's a couple other platforms that don't have support for it, but mainly it's iOS. They still have to do an H.264 stream.
Right. But that means that when you're playing Stadia, uh, I know that there were these stories that came out. I don't know how long ago. They said that if you are on a bandwidth cap, your bandwidth cap would be used up after using X number of hours of Stadia. And I think a lot of people are doing that math and they're not thinking about the fact that there's VP9 out there. And I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that Google has some changes to VP9 to make those packets even smaller as they come to us. Do you have any thoughts on this, Lloyd?
Yeah, it depends on the game, of course, but if you're playing a game that is a HUD on the screen all the time, I mean, it doesn't have to encode and send that every frame. It'd be sending that every couple frames. So that's going to help with some bandwidth as well. But they're all really small changes. But all that stuff will add up over like a week or a month of playing games on Stadia. All those little bandwidth savings will help you save some of your precious bits.
They also said Stadia will rely on specialized protocols developed by Google to ensure fast and reliable transfers of data involving both gameplay visuals and player inputs. They said Stadia's real-time adaptive streaming technology adjusts to network quality in real time alongside technologies like BBR, which is something that stands for something I forget from the article. Um, we are able to detect network impairments such as congestion prior to them happening. In the case of adverse network events, we then optimize for a fluid and responsive gameplay experience. So, my point here is this. Why did I put this in the show notes? My point here is yes, we are thinking of how does the things that we're familiar with, i.e., YouTube and Netflix and all this other stuff, how does this work now? But what a lot of people are misunderstanding or not thinking of is that YouTube is not simply sending you a YouTube stream. I'm sorry, Stadia is not simply sending you a YouTube stream. They are doing stuff that is lower latency and lower bandwidth than YouTube in order to get you the same image quality. And while that is something, I know that there's going to be people that say, well, hold on, why don't they just change YouTube to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And what I think that people, what the answer to that is, they don't care how much latency happens with a YouTube video. You start watching the video, and then there's no interaction from you really after that, except for when you're talking to somebody. There was something else in the article I can't remember now. It said something about the average YouTube stream that is sent to a user has 500 milliseconds of latency, and they were talking to this guy. What's his name again? Majid Bakar, and I could be pronouncing his name wrong. Sorry, dude. They were talking to Mr. Bakar, and they said we can get that with Stadia. We can get that down to 17 milliseconds. Now, that's not including. That's just comparing it to a YouTube stream. All right,
Right.
so 500 down to 16. That doesn't mean that it's going to be better than the Xbox One or the Nintendo Switch or whatever local latency you're getting. But when you're going from 500 to 17, I think that's a big difference, and I think that kind of thing is what makes Stadia so impressive.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And Google has a long history of trying to make the internet faster. They've done things like encourage SSL and speed up certain protocols and allow people to have news. I can't remember the name of the what they did, but you can install this script on your system, and then if you're a news blog, Google can access that stuff really fast. They also had the Google public DNS, where you would punch in 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4, I think it was, into your computer, and that would be your DNS servers, and it would be way faster than every other DNS out there. If your lookup of your DNS, if you say I want to go to google.com, your computer talks to a DNS server, waits for a response back on what that IP is, and then goes to it. But Google wanted it to be faster for everybody because they want Google to run on phones in third world countries and have very little data transfer. So they've been doing this for ages, trying to make things smaller, faster, and better. So I have no doubts that they have some magic in the works for Stadia to make it even better than what we know of YouTube. This article addresses some of those, and I'm sure there's going to be more down the road where they have a way to send the stream super low latency without the normal sort of back and forth that always happens with like a data feed. So I trust Google knows how to make this stuff work really well. So it was good to see this article and see some of the other things that the IEEE thinks that is a benefit for Google, but also a benefit for the industry.
And just a quick follow-up, IEEE, I looked it up. It's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. So they're they're a real thing. And this is not what's the thing it's not like some fan magazine or something like that. This is like a .org kind of thing, if that makes
Right.
sense. And also, everything that you were just saying about Stadia, about the way that Google has been doing this for a very long time. That is the one advantage that I feel, and I'm all set to be wrong. I've been wrong many times, but this is the one advantage that I feel that Google has over Microsoft with their xCloud is Microsoft has been working on operating systems and basically Microsoft Word for a really long time. And sure, they've also been doing the Xbox stuff, but I feel like nobody has done as much work as Google into sending video over the internet, and maybe Netflix, but even then, that's not a low latency kind of thing with Netflix. So I feel like Google's done the most work there, and that's why I'm very confident and bullish about
Right.
what's going to happen with Stadia. And as far as xCloud goes, the one thing that I think that actually hampers xCloud is the fact that they are also making a at-home console. They are focusing their attention in multiple locations, and I know I tend to bring it back to Nintendo a lot, but I look at the era when Nintendo had a home console and a portable console, and they were splitting their efforts, and that made it really hard for them to compete because you couldn't say, oh, I'm going to go buy the Nintendo console and I get all these Nintendo games. No, you get half the Nintendo games because the other half are on the portable system. So now you got to buy two things.
Right.
And I know that that's not going to happen with xCloud. Anything that's on Xbox, I'm sure, is also going to be on xCloud. That would just be foolish of them not to. But they're not putting all of their eggs in the streaming basket, and Google is, and that makes me trust them just a little bit more when it comes to the streaming thing, because they're putting all their eggs in this basket. They must have a lot of confidence that it's going to be fantastic. And if
Yep.
Microsoft had a lot of confidence that xCloud was going to blow everybody out of the water, then they wouldn't be making the next Xbox, I don't think. That's
Right.
just how I feel about it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's one way to look at it. I was going to say Google, but Microsoft, they definitely have a lot of irons in the fire, but they also have completely changed the way that their business works. They were very focused on selling you a $300 OS and then a box copy of Microsoft Office, and that was it. And now it's like, who pays for operating systems these days and just
Yeah.
throws it out there? Free upgrades for everybody. Windows 10 is going to be around forever. So they're really adjusting what their kind of core message is, and what their core I don't know, competency as a company is, to go into services and things like that. So having another service added totally makes sense. And also for Xbox, it makes sense for them to get their games on a whole bunch of different platforms because they bought a whole bunch of development studios, and they know that the Xbox has currently the lowest install base. So they want to make a game and they want to sell it on PlayStation and Nintendo and Xbox. So it's just a really weird change for them as a company.
All right. Before we go any further, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, click the bell so you're notified whenever we go live or do a new show. And let's talk about phones real quick. I know this is a video game show, but it's the week before Google does another major announcement. So right before we started recording, Lloyd was like, "Do you have any idea how hard it is to find anything to talk about right now?" And I'm like, "I know they're being so cagey, but." And if you try and look for a story, it's like, and next week is the thing, and we're like, we know next week's the thing. We want to find
Yeah.
other stuff. But anyway, here's some stuff that's tangentially related to Stadia, because you're going to be able to play Stadia on your phone if you've got a Pixel. And Android Police recently tweeted out Pixel 4 specs leak, and this could just be a rumor, but leak 90 hertz smooth motion displays. And that is a big deal for Stadia. And let me explain why it's a big deal for Stadia. But before I do, there's also rumors that the 2020 iPhone could have 120 hertz display. Okay, so why do we care about the refresh rate of these screens? The reason we care about this is that it all goes back to latency. The higher the frames per second that you are streaming to your screen, the less the latency will impact you. Because the way it works is you push a button, and then a certain number of frames go by before that button press is registered, and then you see the result on the screen. If you're getting a faster, because the button press takes no time at all, like that sends to the server almost instantaneously. However, then you have to wait for it to draw everything and send that video to you on your screen at home. The higher the frames per second, the faster that drawing comes through, and the less latency you're going to experience. So if you're playing on your phone, we'll just ignore TVs and computers for now. If you're playing on your phone, then you want to have the screen that has the highest possible refresh rate. And with the Pixel coming in at 90, which is awesome, and the iPhone coming in at 120, also awesome. That is really, really good for playing games on the go with your Stadia controller and this stupid little clip that Lloyd and I mentioned last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, that you can clip to your controller and your phone. What do you think about this, Lloyd?
Yeah, I love it. I have an iPhone 10, and they recently, I think I can't remember which version of the OS, they gave it 120 hertz refresh rate for the touch input. So the screen itself is only refreshing at 60 frames a second, but the input, it's looking twice that to check for people touching the screen. And that made made the phone feel so much better, just because the amount of input possibility is doubled. So scrolling the screen, it's not as unresponsive as it used to be. So having a higher refresh rate is better. It's also the same reason why in a game like Fortnite, they put the phone people with the Switch people, because Switch is locked to 30 frames a second, where every other console can do 60 frames a second, every console and PC. So it was unfair to be playing having the matchmaking between the Switch and I think the Xbox, I want to say, because Xbox people, they have basically twice the amount of time to line up a shot and shoot, because they're getting twice as much information as to where you are at that time. It's milliseconds, but it makes the game feel that much more responsive. So yeah, having a higher refresh rate on your phone screen would be fantastic, and iPads, I'm sure will follow after that as well. And 120 hertz just sounds fantastic for a mobile device like that.
Actually, I think the iPad Pro 12.9, which is the one that I have, has a very high refresh rate. I'm trying to Google it right now.
It does have
Yeah, it's
120.
120. Yeah, it's 120, which is amazing. And actually, I'm running iOS 13 beta. I know you're not supposed to run betas, but I'm running the beta. And when they updated it so that the pencil it is much faster, and it feels like I am drawing on paper when I am
Right.
drawing on my iPad. It is just absolutely fantastic. It's so smooth and slick, and there's no delay. And that's exactly what having a higher refresh rate can do. It can make or break your inputs, and I'm very, very happy that the iPad 12.9 has that feature. And I'm also very happy that the iPhones and the Pixels are going to have these higher refresh rates as well, because that is just fantastic. Although, with all of these updates, I wonder Switch is going to have to be playing all by themselves with their 30 frames per second.
Pretty much, yeah. It's not going to be good. But
Uh,
yeah, like the 120 hertz refresh on your iPad is great, and they bumped the pencil sample rate to 240, so double what your screen refresh rate is, and it's amazing that they can get that amount of data capture happening on a device like that.
right, and all of this talk about refresh rates and stuff like that makes me wonder about hardware. You know how I've said before, hey, we finally, with Stadia, you're not going to have to invest in a lot of hardware and stuff. I am sitting in front of me with three 1080p 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second monitors. I almost think that I might want to buy a new monitor for my center monitor that is, I don't care about 4K so much, but that's a higher frame rate so that I can get even better latency. So maybe I'll find a way to spend money after all, Google. You tried to stop me. They tried to stop me, but they failed. Are you ready for crowd play, man?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right. So crowd play is when you guys either tweet at us or you leave a YouTube comment. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, comment down below and we will respond. We got 3 comments. Well, we got a bunch of comments this week, but I pulled out 3 of them. And it said YouTube comment from Reggie Bandari. They said it was said that because last time we were talking about Bluetooth on the controller, and we found out, sure enough, it has Bluetooth in it. But they said it was said that the controller does have Bluetooth, but it has been deactivated and won't be available until 2020. So I was like, well, that sounds really weird. That doesn't make any sense. Let me check this out. So sure enough, I went to store.google.com. I looked for the Stadia controller, and if you scroll all the way down to the very, very bottom, first off, Stadia is not available in Hawaii or Guam. Sorry, guys. But then it says, where is the Bluetooth stuff? Here we go. Product contains Bluetooth Classic radio. No Bluetooth Classic functionality is enabled at this time. Bluetooth Classic functionality may be implemented at a later date. So, what do you think about that, Lloyd? The fact that they are not going to let you use Bluetooth at first.
Yeah, well, they're going to support Bluetooth LE because that's how you pair the controller with your wireless network. You use the app and you connect through Bluetooth that way.
Mm-hmm.
What I think this means is Bluetooth Classic. I've never heard it called that before,
Me
but
either.
that must just be your standard connect to another device as a HID, connect
Mm-hmm.
potentially headphones to it, stuff like that. The fact that it has that support is great. Not available at launch. Okay. Hopefully that'll come at some point in the near future.
I wonder, like, so is that so that we're not using our Stadia controllers on our Xbox or something? Like, what's their reasoning? That doesn't make
It,
sense to me why they would remove a function until later.
it could be that they want to have an actual controlled experiment for this initial rollout. So they want everybody to play with the Stadia controller connected to their TV, and that's it. They don't want it connected to any other Android streaming device. They want the Chromecast Ultra and the controller on your Wi-Fi, and that's it. Or they want you to plug that controller into a computer and do it that way. They want to have like 3-4 use cases instead of 3,000-4,000 use cases, that when they're doing support, when people are calling complaining, when they're trying to troubleshoot, when they're trying to make things run better, they know kind of what they're dealing with. I'm sure all that stuff will come down the road once they allow you to hook up like Android, every Android phone and every iOS phone and every version of the Chrome browser. Some of that stuff will be turned on because they've done enough data gathering to make things work. They like to do kind of staged rollouts. So this will just be the way to control that staged rollout, I think.
Okay, all good points. Thank you very much, Lloyd. Before we move on to the next bit of crowd play, there's a couple more things that I noticed when I was looking at this Stadia controller thing. First off, there's a lot of people out there that are like, this is just a way for Google to get another microphone in your house so they're going to listen to you. And they say here, the built-in mic is off. until you either press the Google Assistant button or turn it on from within a game or Stadia platform. You can also control a headset mic if you plug one in. So that's not what it's for. And then secondly, this is actually pretty interesting. Uh, what is Android up to now? Like their letter.
Jeez, I don't even
It's
know.
like
I don't have
P.
any Android devices.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I think
I
it's like
stopped paying
P or
attention.
something.
I stopped paying attention when they stopped using Candy as their name. I don't really care anymore.
Well, okay, there you go. That was a long
Q.
time ago, right? When they stopped
Yeah,
using
yeah,
Candy. Okay,
yeah. It
so
was like Kit Kat or whatever.
the Stadia controller requires Wi-Fi network and a mobile device running Android 6 Marshmallow. All right, so that was a really long time ago, or
Hmm.
iOS 11. And by the way, we're up to iOS 13 by the time this launches,
Yeah.
or later. So that is going to cover a lot of phones. I don't think that there's going to be. Okay, I can't. I was almost said like a single phone out there. But the other day, I don't even remember where the hell I was, but I was wandering around and, this guy pulls out his phone and it was a flip phone. Like he took out a flip phone and was using it to talk to somebody. And I just looked at him like, what is that thing? Oh my God. But anyway, iOS 11 or Android 6. So that covers almost every iPhone because iOS keeps letting you update your phone for a really long time. And Android 6 is so long ago, that's going to
Yeah.
cover pretty much any smartphone out there is going to be able to allow you to connect, which I think is great. I think is awesome. And so good on Google for not making it because I know they said they want to have it to be platform agnostic, which is awesome, but they could have just as easily said we can use this to get people to upgrade things, and they chose not to do that, which I think is great. Vaxer in chat says that flip phones are fun. I disagree, Vaxer. They are not fun, but you can be wrong if you want to. We got a YouTube comment from Daryl Smock Jr. They said Epic Games is going to be on Stadia, and then I replied with, where'd you hear that? Because I don't remember this. And they replied back, it was when they did their E3 announcement. So I went through and I rewatched their E3 announcement and I looked through a bunch of stuff and I tried my best Google foo. I couldn't find anything that said that Epic Games was partnering with Stadia. Do you know of anything that we've heard anything in that case, Lloyd?
No, what this could mean is just they're bringing Fortnite to Stadia, which totally would make sense. This is in reference to us talking about Epic having Tencent as a partner, and then potentially using their streaming service to have everything on the Google or the Epic Store. I'm getting all my companies mixed up.
I know.
Everything on the Epic Store playable on the streaming service. That wouldn't preclude them from having their games available on Stadia as well. There's different marketplaces for games like that.
But so far as you know and as far as I know, we don't know that Epic Games. We don't know for sure that Epic Games is bringing any games to Stadia,
I
right?
haven't seen anything that Epic actually owns coming announced that it's coming to Stadia. I've seen other games that are going onto the Epic Store coming on Stadia, but that's just another storefront, just like Stadia is. So no, nothing Epic owned that I've seen.
So if you actually have a source for this, anybody out there, we are very curious because there's a couple of Epic properties that I absolutely want to come to Stadia. Well, there's one in particular. Lloyd, can you guess what it is?
Epic property coming to Stadia. Well, I would say Fortnite, but that's probably not it.
No, it's not. It's not Fortnite. It's Rocket League. Rocket
Rocket
League. I
League.
want Rocket League on
Right.
Stadia so bad. I love that game, and to be able to play that with no multiplayer lag would be fantastic. And I love Rocket League, so I will buy it again when it comes to if it comes to Stadia. But I
Nice.
would love it if Daryl could find that link and share it with us, or anybody out there who's watching. Leave a comment down in the section down below, and it would really help out. You want to read this
Nice.
comment from Ed Burton?
Sure. From Ed writes in, I can't wait to hear about when Stadia will support iOS. As for me, I'm getting Stadia because I love to be an early adopter and I love Destiny 2. I for sure would not be a day one Stadia founder if it weren't for the inclusion of Destiny 2. I would have still jumped in and used Stadia on day one, but Destiny 2 is what made the difference for me and convinced me to buy the Founders Edition. So yeah, I can't wait. Or thanks for the comment, Ed. And yeah, I can't wait to find out when iOS will be supported for more than just a way to pair your controller. Hopefully that'll be early 2020.
I'm curious if there's any other things out there, like, Ed told us the one thing that made them pick up that Founders Edition, and I'm just curious from our listeners, what is the one thing that convinced you more than anything else that you wanted to pick up a Founders Edition over waiting for the free service that comes out later on this year? I mean, for me, I do a podcast about it. I really don't have a choice. I need to be able to check this out and talk about it. And I also am excited for something new. So, Lloyd, is there a one thing other than the podcast? Because I already took the easy answer.
You took the easy answer.
I did. So is there something that said Lloyd has to try out the Founders Edition?
Sure, it exists, and I want to play it.
All right.
That's why I backed it as a founder.
There you go. So I want to know what you guys, what's the one thing that convinced you more than anything else that you wanted to pick up the Founders Pack for Stadia? Lloyd, are you ready to button up this this beast?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You guys can follow the show over on Twitter at Stadia Cast. You can follow me at Run Jump Stomp. You can follow Lloyd at Dasme. That's DASME. Be sure to use the hashtag Stadia Cast so we can find your tweets. We would like to thank the unofficial Discord server of the official Stadia subreddit for letting people know about our show, and you can check out their stuff over at bit.ly/Stadia Discord. You can check out my Discord over at runjumpstomp.com/Discord. I've got a Stadia Cast channel over there. Lloyd, what's your Discord, sir?
It's over at rezd.tv/Discord, rezd.tv/Discord.
And if you're like, oh my God, too many Discords, guess what? Discord just updated. They've got folders now. So you can put Lloyd's Discord and my Discord in a folder and label it whatever. And, I'm in a lot more Discords now than I used to be because we've got the folders. So it makes things a lot easier. The music that you are about to hear is Subterranean Kamikaze by Zircon. Check out their stuff over at zirconstudios.bandcamp.com. Lloyd, you have an awesome day, sir.
You too, and everybody listening.